Hey, Miguel Dorati back here on the CRP, and that's Anthony Scott Piatt over there. That means it's the boxing team, and we're into another wage rage. We've got boxing this Saturday, April 20th, and this one is coming to us, the PBC on Fox, and it looks like we've got action coming to us from the Dignity Health Sports Park in Carson, California. And the main event, the vacant WBC's silver title at 147 pounds. Danny Garcia, a bounce back fight for the former world champion as he takes on Adrian Granados. Granados, a battle tested veteran, calling out Garcia. So definitely some interesting twists in that fight. Going further on down the card, an interim world title fight with the WBA on the card. Young Brandon Figueroa, 18-0, looking to grab a belt as he faces Janfres Parejo. We may not make a pick on that fight, but it is worth mentioning as a co-feature. And some of the other fights that are interesting, another interim WBO world title on the line at Bantamweight. This one comes at the 118-pound weight class. We've got John Riel Casimero, who's 26-4, taking on Ricardo Espinoza Franco. Franco 23-2. And the last of the fights we'll cover, they got a huge fight card out in California. The last of the fights we'll cover here, 10 rounds of heavyweight action. Andy Ruiz Jr. Making another comeback. He returns to us at 31-1, so still a viable prospect in the heavyweight division. Alexander Dimitrenko providing the opposition at 41-4. So that's the card. That's what we're looking at here, ASP. Let's start with the main event and go ahead and talk Garcia Granados. With Garcia, you can always count that his dad's going to do the talking. And Granados, he's a guy who doesn't back down. So it's definitely been interesting in the buildup.
You're right. And, you mentioned his dad doing the talking for him. And, Garcia is got a hype machine behind him, if you will. But I think he's been groomed. And I think he's been groomed by his father, and rightfully so. But at 34-2, it's a pretty good record with only 20 KOs. He's lost to Sean Porter. He's lost to Keith Thurman. Split decision on the Keith Thurman one. So that was probably one of Danny's better opponents, highly skilled, and to go to a split decision on that one. Adrien Granados has also lost to Sean Porter. Adrien Broner, split decision against Adrian. So, both these guys are up at that certain level where they can compete with these, world-class guys, well-known names. Granados does have 6 losses. I mentioned Sean Porter and Adrien Broner. His early losses are really sort of less significant. I think he lost his second fight, and he lost a few early ones. And I think he's really drastically improved since then. So I don't really hold some of those 6 losses against him, being that they were early fights and sort of a changed opponent. And for that reason, because Garcia has been a little sheltered and because Granados has fought a lot of pretty decent guys, I'm going to pick Garcia for the decision, but I'm going to dog watch Granados at plus 1350. I think that's a great chance to turn your 100 into $1,450 with the win at a plus 1350. So I'm going to go ahead and pick that dog watch. I think Granados' record at 6 turns people off, turns some of the bookies off, turns some of the people betting that know the Garcia name. So you've got a lot of money coming in on Danny early. But at this rate now, at that plus 1350, I think that's worth $100. Can't pass that up. We're going to go with that on we haven't talked about it in a while, but our $10,000 challenge, we're up somewhere around 13 or 14,000 starting out the 10, only making $100 bets at a time over the past 6 or 7 weeks now. We've added about 3 or 4, so about 40% to our total. And we're just going to keep going with that and see how close we can get to 100,000 or bust. But we're doing pretty good on it so far with some of these outside dog watch picks. We don't think they're going to win, but we think they could win. Dog watch 1350 Granados.
And I agree with you. I think it's a very interesting fight. The bottom line with me is Garcia's a former world champion, and that's to his credit. He's an excellent fighter. But if you remember back, he was about the most confident, undefeated fighter out there. And then you come out and you take a split decision loss to Keith Thurman. You can still talk your way around it. Comes back, faces Brandon Rios, takes out Rios, gets the job done in a fight he's favored, and then he faces Porter and once again experiences a loss. So now he's 1-2 in his last 3 fights. And you think back, at the beginning of 2017, when they entered that run, there's no way they think they'd be 1-2 in their next fights. They were that confident. So does that affect him coming into this fight? Will we see a little bit of a different Garcia? Will he be more aggressive? Will he be more worried? Granados calling him out, I think Granados is eyeing just exactly the factors that I've pointed out there as his good reasons for it. Garcia, vulnerable because when you're that confident and the wheels fall off, you're going to come in and you're going to have some questions, maybe carrying your own baggage. And then when you have a boisterous father like that who hasn't really changed much of the rhetoric, you wonder what kind of nurturing and healing he's actually getting behind the scenes in order to bring him, in the best shape possible for another fight. Because if they still think they're the best in this weight class, now with a 1-2 record in the last couple of fights, they're getting into delusional territory. You know what I mean? And before they had a case.
You should learn from your losses. You should learn more from your losses than your wins and improve. But if you're constantly being told you're already the best, how do you improve if you're already the best? So I agree with what you're saying. That mindset works if you can keep it going to an undefeated record. But really, you shouldn't be afraid of a loss to be able to improve upon it. I don't know that's where Danny Garcia's training team has his headspace. So absolutely agree with what you're saying, which backs up that dog watch at plus 1350. Granados has fought some really great guys. He's not going to be intimidated. He's not going to necessarily be outclassed to a level that he's going to look bad. This is a dog fight for sure.
Moving right along, as stated, the interim WBO title at 118 pounds, the Bantamweights. Ricardo Espinoza Franco brings a 23-2 record to the fight. He's facing John Riel Casimero. Casimero, 26-4. A couple of battle-tested guys getting an interim title shot, so they're looking to get into the mix here with the WBO with one of those additional belts, so to speak. But what we're looking at here is we're looking at the Philippines versus Mexico. Here's a tried and true rivalry if ever there was one.
You're both speed fighters, willing to stand toe-to-toe. You think of the Philippines as a little bit better footwork, but Ricardo Espinoza Franco is a beast. I really like the film I've seen on this guy. At plus 180 for him and minus 240 for Casimero, it's pretty darn close. I mean, that could have came out fairly even and been changed from where the money's going. I'm not sure exactly why it's there. 23-2 for Espinoza. No, he's never been knocked out, and 20 of his are knockouts. At 26-4, Casimero has been knocked out and only has 17 knockouts. So considering that, something just over a 50%, maybe 60% knockout rate for Casimero and a much higher rate for Franco, I'm going to go with Franco for an actual dog pick. This is a close one too. I've picked 11 dog picks this year since we started doing this, and I haven't lost any of those yet. I will say this is a close one. This is a tight one. But when I really ask myself, who do I think is going to win? I really think Franco pulls this off. So with that criteria, even though it's close, I'm going to go with the dog pick. So it's a great dog watch. It's a slim dog pick. It's not my favorite dog pick ever, but I'm going to stick with my criteria and stick behind my calls and go with what I've been doing. Franco plus 180, dog pick over Casimero. There you go. 12th one of the year. Let's see if keep that record going.
And I love this kind of fight because, you really don't know. There's not a lot of common opponent or anything like that. They operate in different areas of the world. So it's exciting to see what actually materializes in the ring. Both guys, not top shelf, A+ type of names. They both experienced a couple of losses in terms of Franco. Franco has operated a lot in 6 and 8 round bouts, which indicates a little bit of level. So, but he has fought in the United States, and his 2 losses came a long time ago in fights where he was traveling. And on the other hand, you've got Casimero, who's a guy who has also hit the road and been all over the place, including fights in Mexico. On his resume, which says something. The travel and stuff, but it is his first fight in the United States. So that could all be very telling. A lot of mixed factors here, and I agree with you. I think in terms of a live dog, you have to give this guy a shot because there's so many X factors when two guys like this at crossroads meet on neutral grounds like this. You just don't know. That's why the odds are real close. It's the only close odds on the card.
You're right, and I want to back up what you're saying about the 12 rounds versus the 3, 4, and 6 rounds that Franco's been fighting. He comes on late, and a lot of those he had his knockouts in the 4, 6, 8 rounds. So he does come on. He stays strong. He doesn't seem to wear out. He seems to keep his power late. Where Casimero is sort of that faster Filipino style and moves around a lot. Good footwork early, but he seems to tire out a little bit. And that did play into why I made this pick is the later rounds. Again, I don't think Casimero is going to get the knockout on Franco. Franco's taken some hits and seems unfazed. So if you don't get the knockout early for Casimero, the longer it goes, the better it is for Franco, who will continue to be relentless, moving forward, power puncher against the Filipino style that needs to move and get out of the way. Can he keep moving the whole time? That's the challenge for Casimero. And if he does keep moving the whole time, does it look like he's running? And you get some judges to give you sort of the ring control advantage and call some rounds for you just because it looks like Franco is the one hunting down Casimero. So that's what I'm going to bet on. That's what I'm hoping for. 12 rounds helps him out. Franco plus 180, dog pick.
And very interesting there. Let's move on to the heavyweight bout on the card because we've got Andy Ruiz Jr., who is still just 29 years old, brings a 31-1 record. He's gone 2-0 in lesser fights since his loss to Joseph Parker. The long loss of his career came in a WBO world title shot against the New Zealander in New Zealand. And, there are factions. I personally think Parker won that fight, but there are factions even in New Zealand that feel Ruiz Jr. was robbed. And, you might be looking at Ruiz Jr. in the mix there. He's certainly thinking about it. Here, he's popping up outside of the top-ranked roster where he had previously been and been working with. And now with the PBC, perhaps, he's facing Alexander Dimitrenko. Dimitrenko, 41-4. A big guy at 6'7", and he's coming off a loss in August of last year to Brian Jennings. He was also stopped in 3 rounds by Joseph Parker. Whereas, if you want to go comparing, people think Ruiz Jr. did very well with Joseph Parker. So definitely a fight that sees Ruiz Jr. Sort of working on his Q score and staying busy. He's at minus 1,500. Dimitrenko paying back at plus 825. What do you see in this one?
I do like Andy Ruiz Jr. He's a fellow with his physique that doesn't necessarily look as quick and powerful as he actually is. When he trains and works out, I really like what I see from him. When he gets in fights, I've seen him go long and really have some stamina. You mentioned Joseph Parker. Alexander Dimitrenko did lose to Parker. He got knocked out in 3. Ruiz lost to Parker, but it was a majority decision, as you pointed out. I think one of the judges might have had it as a draw, and 2 had it for Parker. I actually, if you look at that loss to Parker, it actually made me raise the stock of Andy Ruiz and lower Parker's stock relative to their my pre-fight estimate of where those guys ranked. Whether Parker won it or not is debatable, but I like Ruiz better after that fight. I think Joseph is less ready for the upper echelon, your Ortizes, your Wilders, your Anthony Joshuas. It made me think Parker's less ready for them, and maybe Ruiz is, if he could get better, a little bit better, he's maybe on the up and coming. But at 31-1, he may be past his prime, only 20 knockouts. But for this fight, I think Ruiz by decision is what I'm going to go with over Dimitrenko. He's lost 4 times, Dimitrenko, and been knocked out 3. So it could be a knockout, but I'm going to go by decision. I want to throw in there that Ruiz Jr. is saying he will be a glad replacement for Jarrell Miller against Anthony Joshua. I know you just did a wage rage on the fact that Jarrell Miller is tentatively testing positive for performance enhancing drugs and may not be Anthony Joshua's opponent in a couple of months. And so they may have to come up with a replacement. Ruiz is throwing his own name in the hat. That doesn't mean a whole lot. The list of 6 or 7 that I saw did not include Ruiz. It was Louis Ortiz and a few others. It was not Dylan White either, which I was surprised to see. But 5 or 6 heavyweights that Hearn and Joshua's camp is looking at. But Ruiz wants to throw his name in the hat. That should not stop him from taking this fight this weekend, unless for some weird reason Joshua's camp said, "Sure, we'll fight you." Then he could pull out. So look for a last-minute pullout, possibly. If not, I still wouldn't bet on this fight. Ruiz by decision. That's my call.
I think it's interesting. I think we could pop up and maybe find an interesting over-under on this one. My opinion is that Ruiz has a lot to fight for here. The bottom line is that there were times in Ruiz's career when he was younger that people questioned whether he really liked boxing and whether he was, a career fighter or they questioned his motivation. And, he's continued to bounce back. Now, at some point, after those questions about his motivation, he went in and put the work to the point where he got himself a WBO world title shot. Now, he came close in that fight. How do you do that with dealing with that at the end of 2016? He took 2017 off, but then he went back and notched 2 wins, including a win against a veteran, Kevin Johnson, who's not a guy anybody looks good against. You know what I mean? In his last outing back in July. So here he's trying to stay busy and he's motivated to keep his name out there. At 29 years old, he could be a factor, but more than likely, to be honest, I'm not putting anyone down here. But what I think about Andy Ruiz Jr. is I think his top side comes in right around where Chris Ariola's was last generation. Whereas Ariola's a tough guy, I think Ruiz, once you get him into a fight, can be a dog and can be really tough. But the bottom line is the motivation's not there. He's also come in fat and overweight, and there have been those little problems there with him. Overcoming that, he's talented, but at 6'2", I think you're talking about an A- heavyweight, not a frontline heavyweight. And no, I don't think his phone's going to ring for the Joshua fight.
No, I don't think so either. I think if he wins this fight and wins it impressively, he can get, as you say, that sort of second tier, probably a decent paycheck. He's probably not going to headline any pay-per-views.
Yeah, with his age, he's in the right age range that he could certainly stick with it, and for the next few years, perhaps see another world title fight against one of these guys materialize, when it works out with the politics and stuff like that. So we'll see. Ruiz Jr. throwing his name back in the mix, and again, we predicted that would happen here in the heavyweight division. A lot of guys coming out of the woodwork, getting their names out there because we've got a wide open division. This Saturday, Andy Ruiz jumps back in the ring. He's on the undercard of Danny Garcia versus Adrian Granados, the PBC on Fox. I've been joined by our boxing specialist, Anthony Scott Piatt, ASP, to make his Piatt picks. And we made picks, including a dog pick on this card. So you want to take a look at it. ASP 11-0 this year with the picks. Give us a like and subscribe. Any final words, boss?
No, man, I appreciate it. It was fun this time. Some weeks we don't have a lot of the dog watch and dog picks. This week we have 3 dog watches and a dog pick on the 2 wage rages that we did for boxing. Thanks for tuning in. Appreciate that. I think we covered a birthday on the other one, but thanks to everybody for tuning in and for liking and subscribing. We're growing this thing, and it's great. It's a fun time. Miguel, you're a big part of it. I appreciate being with you, brother.
It's all about the teamwork, and that's what's going on here. Very happy to do the ASP picks with my boxing team, and that's what it's all about. Well, you want to check our other blog for the Crawford odds. That's important to take a look at as well. And I'm Miguel Dorati signing off for ASP here on the CRP.